Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Are you telling me you built a time machine? What of a DeLorean?
The Statue of Liberty is kaput. Disconcerting.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Surprise! Welcome to the Cine-Siblings Draft, the podcast where two brothers draft their favorite top fives within film. I'm Ian.
And I'm James.
And Jamie. What are we drafting today? Oh, wait, you don't know because we're surprising everyone, even ourselves. We've chosen four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 categories within film. We're going to roll a 4-sided die, a D4. And then we're going to wing it from there. We're going to eyeball it, as Iron Man says.
So just before we went on air, we have looked at our master list of potential ideas. Ian picked 2, I picked 2, and now we are going to roll with it. And so for our 4 possible categories, we have number 1, Lord of the Rings moments. Number 2, dystopian films. Number 3, monster movies. And number 4, trilogies / tetralogies or quadrilogies or whatever, but I'm pretty sure it's tetralogies. So film franchises that come in 3s or 4s. And I think the 4s is there just as a technicality for Indiana Jones.
That's a trilogy, I thought.
It is. All right. So, because I'm going to technologically D&D it up, I'm going to roll my D4 here. You ready?
I'm ready.
Bam. Number 1, it's going to be Lord of the Rings moments.
I'm not ready.
All right.
Phones away. We're going to wing it.
This is one that's a little bit easier to wing, honestly, since we've actually watched all the films ad nauseum since they came out, 20 some odd years ago. Well, no, not quite 20 years ago.
No.
It was 2001. I was a freshman in high school.
All right. You ready to play a game and see who goes first?
Yeah, let's do it.
Movies with a dragon.
Okay. Dragonheart.
Damn it. I was going to watch that. Rain of Fire. That was my one. It was like a dark horse pick. Rain of Fire.
The Hobbit, Desolation of Smog.
The Hobbit, the original animated film.
Nice. The Hobbit, Battle of the 5 Armies.
I thought he was dead already.
Yeah, he shows up at the very beginning.
Oh, well, you're going with Lord of the Rings themes here, huh? Pete's Dragon.
Oh, can I do the Pete's Dragon, the remake?
No.
You sure? There's gotta be more. Why aren't there as many dragon movies as I think there are? I lose again. What's
Aragon.
Oh gosh, I was thinking about that movie the other day and how they obviously set up sequels and they never made any of them because the movie was so bad.
Book series apparently good, but I never read it.
I started reading the first one and couldn't get through it, and I was like, this looks like something one of my students would write, like as a creative writing exercise, and I'd give it a good grade, but I can't read it. And then I learned the kid wrote it when he was an actual kid wrote it, and I was like, oh, okay, I feel kind of bad now because I was judging a little harshly, but could never get into it.
What Sleeping Beauty? Didn't Maleficent turn into a dragon?
Yeah. I feel like you're just rubbing it in at this point.
I had 2 in the chamber, even though you took my Dragonheart, dark horse, terrible movie pick. Is that Kevin Costner?
Wait, which one?
Dragonheart.
No, it's
I know Sean Connery is the voice of the dragon.
Dude, no, it's not. It's
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid. I couldn't think of the daggum name. Or is it not Nicholas Quaid? Who's the other? Yeah, the better looking one. The better looking Quaid.
Dennis Quaid.
Yeah. Okay.
Frequency. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Lord of the Rings moments, and I'm going first. Shit. All right. So we get going into round one.
Yeah.
So
Round
do you
one.
want to talk about Lord of the Rings at all before we go into it?
Lord of the Rings is the greatest trilogy ever made.
So that would have went first if we did trilogies, right?
It would have. It would have
All right.
definitely gone for, at least for me. It beats out all the. It really is the best franchise. Part of it is that it's going on a book series that took a long time to make. I think 12 years for him to actually write it. And then the thing is, and this is one thing I've learned with like my own writing process, and I'm a big fan of Tolkien. It's his world building is so on point that there's so much going on and so much depth. And see, you're already yawning.
Yeah. I'm going in
But
blind, baby.
yeah, but I mean, we're looking at the movies here, but the movies, and like this was a problem with like the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, is like they knew where they were going. They were filming all these at one time.
Right.
There was no difference of directors, different writers trying to meld their visions of these comic book characters or these new characters that they hope to make into these iconic, things that people will enjoy for years to come. No, these were characters that were already beloved by millions of people across the globe, different cultures, and it was a unified piece. I mean, Tolkien wanted to print the whole book as one thing, but his publisher was like, "Are you crazy? No, we can't do that. Sorry." So the source material in this case, as opposed to so many others, is really it's a superior work. And so even the changes they made, they work. That like the changes they made in the film as opposed to the books, they work. But it's just a lot more going on, and it's a much more unified piece. So yeah, does that give you enough time to come up with your number one pick?
I mean, last week I took a scene from Lord of the Rings at number one.
Yeah.
So should I change it up? Maybe not. Maybe I don't know. Let's figure out. Let's go into round one and figure out where the heck this is going, because I don't know what. Yeah. Yep.
Round one.
Round one. Fight. So my first round pick. Shoot. We're just like whole scenes or just moments. Also, are we banning the Hobbit films? They're not.
Yeah,
Lord of
this
the
is
Rings.
just Lord of the Rings.
Okay. All right. Cool. Because there's a lot of Hobbit talk at the beginning of this thing about all these dragons and stuff.
Are you gonna defer?
Am I gonna defer?
You
First
won
round?
the game. I mean, it's like it's fantasy football draft. Like you could defer your first round pick, right?
I could trade it. Yeah. Right.
You want to trade it?
Yeah, I'll trade it. I'll trade my first round pick to you.
Good, because the Rohirrim showing up at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
I knew you were gonna pick that.
So well, it wasn't the first thing I thought of, but then I realized, like, going, no, that's the one. That's the one. Because I honestly, my mind was still on the deaths thing. So I've got like Boromir dies, and that I was mad at you about that from last week. But no, the Rohirrim showing up at the Battle of Pelennor Fields, where we've got, and I don't remember specifically if it's a theatrical release or in the extended cut, because I've only really seen the extended cut since like they come out. So like I only watch the extended cuts if I'm going to watch the film.
Right.
But like you have Gandalf facing off against the king of the Nazgul, the Witch King of Angmar, and you he's having a rough go of it because these are two like really powerful dudes, way beyond everybody, running around fighting in this battle. And then you hear the horn of the Rohirrim and all of the horns, because the Rohirrim have come. The cavalry is here, and this is like, it's just a beautiful moment of, when the things, and this is something Tolkien does a lot of, is he called it, eucatastrophe, a good catastrophe. And when things are the darkest as they could get, when you think there is no hope springs. And this is that moment. At least it's one of those moments in Return of the King. We actually get quite a few of them in Return of the King. And the thing about it is, it's like, these are just, they're men. They are being honorable. They're facing down monsters that they don't know that they can beat, but they're going to fight anyway because it's the right thing to do. And you're going to fight that losing fight. And this is one of the central themes in the whole of Lord of the Rings, particularly in Return of the King.
Yeah.
So the Rohirrim showing up at the Battle of Pelennor Fields is definitely my number one choice, with Theoden riding, with the sword coming down and then chanting death, so yeah, definitely my number one pick.
I mean, I don't have much to add to that. That was pretty good. And you talked about that a lot in our superior sequels draft, where you took Return of the King overall number one. But yeah, it was a good first pick. I'm glad I deferred, because kind of get I wouldn't say that was my first pick, but it's certainly epic.
I didn't feel like I was jacking you with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely belongs. I would have taken it in my top 5 for sure. All right, my number one pick. It took me a second to get here, but I remember. I was like thinking about it. I was like, what is the best moment? What is my favorite moment? Like, favorite moment in Lord of the Rings, and it's time for Faramir, Captain of Gondor, to show his quality. It's the moment where Faramir rides to retake Osgiliath. And which one's Billy Boyd? Is that Pippin?
Yes.
Yeah, Pippin has to sing to Denethor as he shovels and scarfs food down the cherry tomato.
It's a great scene.
He's just chowing down on his feast as his son basically rides to his death. And the Nazgul swooping down and just like taking care of business. And then finally Gandalf comes and rescues them, sort of, with that's not the same scene. Nope.
Yeah,
that's not the same.
No, maybe not. But
Gandalf comes and rescues when they flee Osgiliath.
Right, the original
with the light. Yeah. So, but
one of the few times you see Gandalf use it. But yeah, no, this
Gandalf kind of like pleads with him not to go. That you don't throw your life away.
Right.
Yeah.
And I agree with this pick. It's actually one that's not really book oriented so much, if I recall correctly. But what's nice about it is they take different elements, and Billy Boyd singing this song it's in the book. But it's not really ever juxtaposed like this. The home is behind, the world ahead, and there are many paths to tread through, sorrow through the edge of night. And you're like, when you read the poem in the book, and like it sticks with you because it's one of the ones that's actually pretty catchy. But whenever he's singing it and it's juxtaposed to this ride against the orcs who have taken Osgiliath. So when it's juxtaposed with that, and it's like to the edge of night, you're like, oh, maybe, it's like, I don't think Tolkien meant it exactly this way, but I think he would approve. Like, I'm okay with this. I'm good with this. This is good. This is in fact brilliant. So yeah, definitely a good choice.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the singing really makes the score, the singing is really what makes this scene so freaking good. And even though we know, like, all this, whatever, looks like 30 guys on horseback are no match for these Nazgul and these grotesque orcs. So yeah.
So we're sticking with snake draft, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
My number 2 pick.
Round 2.
I got it ready.
Okay, good.
That's part of our intro sometimes.
You shall not pass.
That's a good one.
Gandalf versus the Balrog.
Nice.
Definitely the iconic movie death as well, if we were talking from last week. But Gandalf on the bridge in the mines of Moria, fighting the Balrog, think he's won, and then gets ganked down by that whip. And the very as he's walking away, kind of, and then we get "Fly, you fools," another good line, and you see how it deeply affects everybody. And then, of course, it's expounded upon in the Two Towers what actually happens as they actually do battle in the depths of Moria. He dies and succumbs to his wounds and whatnot. But
Right.
yeah, but that whole thing with the "you shall not pass," that screams Lord of the Rings. You could just say that and people would know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You can't, yeah.
I'm with it.
You with it?
Yep. All right. So I'm at a little bit of a crossroads here, but I think I'm going to go with the moment of great heroism in Samwise Gamgee defeating the giant spider Shelob.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
He's fighting with a frying pan and Sting. I mean, it's brilliant. Is it? No, it's not a frying pan. It's the light from Galadriel.
Yeah, he's got to have that. It's a frying pan.
Well, no, he fights with the frying pan against the cave troll. But really what this is, and Tolkien talked about it, like these books and films as well, by proxy too, have been like analyzed to death by fans, by scholars, by Tolkien himself. But Samwise Gamgee is the greatest hero of them all. And because of everybody, he doesn't have necessarily the greatest burden, but he's the one who leaves his comfort zone more than anybody else and does greater things than he appears to have been destined to do as a gardener hobbit. He is a low-class servant of a diminutive race. He's not strong. He's not smart. He's just
An eavesdropper.
I ain't been dropping no eaves, sir. No, and Sean Astin's portrayal is absolutely spot on. He is one of the most spot on portrayals in the film. Most of the casting is really, really good. But like Sean Astin just nails Samwise. But when he is confronted with one, he thinks Frodo is dead. He willingly takes the burden of the ring himself. He fights off a giant spider. Now we don't know whether or not he kills him, but he's certain, or kills her, but we know that he sticks her in the belly with sting, which we don't really get the idea. Like, he's not got a whole lot of supernatural help. He does have the light of Elbereth, in the vial, but like
yeah.
he's working on fumes here. Like, they're passing Cirith Ungol. Like, they've been on this hellish journey, and I think this is one of the moments of greatest heroism in the entire trilogy. So Samwise defeating Shelob is my number 2.
All right. So it's time for round 3.
Round 3.
And that, I guess, is me.
Yep.
All right. So what I'm going to do now is go from heroism to really the fall. And in this case, I know that Frodo gets a lot of flack sometimes by the fandom, but really, this one is where Frodo chooses to not what?
Ending, right? You're taking the ending ish.
Yeah.
All right. Spoiler warning. Go ahead.
Oh, come on. With us, I mean, we're drafting the moments. Yeah, Frodo choosing to not destroy the One Ring, and he puts it on. This moment, this scene, what it is it shows the power of the ring, and we thought that if they could just get here, if they could just make it, then it would all be okay. And they're here, and we just know he just has to toss it over the precipice into the lava, and it will be unmade. And the answer is no. And so it really kind of gives us a feeling of like, wait, why? Like, we realize in this point that we don't understand the ring as readers or as the audience. Like, we don't get what's happened to Frodo, how much this has been a burden, not just a burden, but a temptation this whole time. And it's horrifying in a lot of ways, because the hobbits are written to be kind of, they're bumpkins, and like they're the fish out of water. They are kind of like us. Not humanity so much, but us as individuals, more or less. Frodo being particularly, he's more of the higher aristocracy class, and Samwise, representing more of the servant class, which we don't really, I don't think we get a full picture of it in America. But, we fall to temptation. That's the thing that we do. But this, like, is a much more massive temptation.
Yeah.
And it's like, in this moment, you're like, oh no, is it all, what's happening? Like, is the bad guy really going to win? Is the ring the real bad guy? Like, is the ring Sauron, and is Sauron the ring? So this is a moment that I think is really truly a great moment in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely subverts your expectations. You think the hobbits are just going to throw it in, and that's it.
Yeah.
And they might die doing it, like the volcano might explode or something, like it might be tragic, but you think that you're going to get this satisfying like moment. But of course, that's not what we get here. We get like a oopsie kind of thing, like, it happens, but it's definitely not what anyone but Sam is trying to do here.
Right.
So I guess it's my round 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go with a moment of heroism. And definitely a moment that pays off this character's journey. I'm going with the death of the Witch King at the hands of Éowyn.
Dernhelm. That was the character's name in the book, like that she's posing as.
I gotcha. Yeah. Book nerd. I've read them, or I listened to the audiobooks. They're very hard to read, but with modern sensibilities, they're kind of like, you definitely have to squint a bit and reread a lot. So listening to them helps on audiobook. Anyway,
fair enough.
I think this is one of the biggest payoffs for a character in the series. You get this woman, her journey of, she's like, I can fight, I can help. Let me do, and even Aragorn acknowledges, like, you're pretty good with the sword, like, but she's often like, look after the women and children, and she is one of the higher class. She is royalty as far as the kingdom of Rohan goes, but she's always tasked with watching over the women and children. And then she poses as, like you said, Dernhelm, which is a book reference, not in the film. It's not given.
No, I don't think it's necessary in the film, because it's the reveal in the book is actually like, what?
Yeah, right. Because you can't really do that with a movie.
No, it's a little bit. Well, you could, but it would feel cheap.
Right.
We're going more with dramatic irony in the film.
Right. Especially as Éomer finds his sister, who's dying, essentially
not supposed to be there at all.
Right.
Like,
yeah. So, but the I am no man can kill me, and then she takes off the helmet. I am no man. right in the empty space of a ring wraiths or the Nazgul.
Yeah. Now,
the king of the Nazgul.
Don't forget that this is not just a moment of Éowyn's heroism, but it's also.
I was going to get into Mary, but yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
But as she is not supposed to be there, neither is Mary, because they're King Theoden's like, no, or Éomer, somebody's like, no, you can't come. Basically,
Theoden won't let him go because
you can't sit with us.
Well, it's the same premise of why they won't let Éowyn go, because it's like and you can argue that it's sexism or classism or whatever, but it's about these men view it as their role.
They're supposed to protect. Yeah, I get
right. It. Their job is to protect. It's a kind of a complementarian sort of thing, and they're like, no, our job is to protect those who shouldn't be out there fighting orcs. Like, this is not your place. This is our role, and it's not one that we happen to love, but like, we can't just start letting you go out there and get killed, because you're going to get killed. Like, our job is to protect you, not let you go get killed. So it's the reason why he won't let Mary go, because like, you won't be an asset out there. You're going to be a liability. And you can argue the rightness or wrongness of it. That's not what I'm here to do. It's what their view is. And right. I think Tolkien makes a point, and this is really a central theme in the whole work, is that your ability to be a hero is not, it's not about, I don't know exactly how to phrase it. You can't, your ability to be a hero is not something that you can just easily see. It's about the sum of your actions, what you're willing to do. And I think like his view of Sam, and what he would say about Sam, being the ultimate hero of the entire story.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he's the weakest, but he was willing to go the furthest out of his comfort zone. You know, he's the lowest class character in the entire group of character, you know, entire cast. He's short, weak, untrained, unlearned.
Stupid fat Hobbit.
Exactly.
But we're not talking about Sam.
But the thing is it's the same premise though. It's the idea that Eowyn is not
a warrior.
Supposed to be a warrior. She's a shield maiden. The shield maiden would, carry the shield, but like she was supposed to be a supporting figure, but because of who she was as an individual, she could be that hero or heroine rather. And Mary, likewise, because of who he was willing to be, because of the choices that they both made, they were able to do this. And we do lose some of the details in the movie that the books kind of play out with. It wasn't just a regular random sword that Mary stabs into.
Right. It was given to him by Tom Bombadil, who's not in the film. So,
well, it's not just that. He gets it from the tomb of the Barrow-wights, who were enemies of the Witch King. Like it's like a haunt. The Barrow-wights themselves weren't necessarily enemies, but the weapons that they find in the hoard there were made by the Gondorian, not the Gondorians, but the men of Arnor, who were Numenorians.
Yeah, I was about to say Numenor.
Yeah. So, which we might see some in this new Lord of the Rings film. So hopefully we'll see some of that kind of stuff play out a little bit. All right.
Yeah. So it's my number 4 pick. Let's head into round 4.
Round 4.
All right, I can't get the quotes right now without like any prep, but it's one of my favorite moments is Gollum's plan to get the ring back. And it goes something like we go,
Kill the fat Hobbit, and we'll take it. Kill them, and we'll take it for me, for us. Yes, we meant for us.
That's one of my favorite moments.
So Smeagol talking to Gollum and Gollum talking to Smeagol.
Yeah.
That was a great scene.
Yeah, and you get the reflections in the water, and then of course Sam like walks in on it, right? Like, but Gollum's plan to get the ring back and take it for himself, for us,
right,
is one of my most quoted moments of, and definitely a bit of comedy here. Andy Serkis as Gollum is one of the best things about the whole thing, but
sure,
we barely get him in Fellowship, and we start getting, his dude. I remember watching the Two Towers trailer just because of Gollum, like when he's like coming down the thing, like
thieves, the filthy little thieves.
I watched
that was good.
I watched that trailer so many times, so I'm like, I think Gollum's my favorite character in all of Lord of the Rings. He's very complex and tragic in a lot of ways, and a representation of what Frodo can become if he succumbs to the temptations of the ring, and which we see play out in your round 3. We see him succumb, and he's like, "This is mine," much like Gollum calls it his precious. Like, this is what's precious, is most precious to him is the ring. So the Gollum's is probably my favorite character in the entire series. If you asked me when the series came out, it would probably be Legolas. But now I was just like watching the movies, I'm like, Legolas just literally just states the obvious the entire film.
I mean,
they're taking the hobbits to Isengard. Thanks Legolas. Thanks.
Well, honestly, like when I did a reread, I mean, I used to do it like a yearly reread.
That's intense.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I don't do that anymore, working kids and stuff. But the um when I did one after watching the movie, and I did read the books before the movies came out. Like I wanted to read them. Like
Yeah.
they I had like the novels that were like, oh, upcoming feature from New Line Cinema. And like, okay.
Yeah. I think I have them all as one, and Ian McKellen's on the
Mhm.
front as Gandalf.
Yeah. But like, so when I did a reread after I was like super familiar with all the films, so like all the extended editions had come out, and I'd seen them all, half a dozen times at least. And I'm rereading and I'm like, man, Tolkien didn't really do a lot with these characters. Like Aragorn's a very different character from book to film. Um, and Tolkien really took a much more like mythological type approach. Um, but like Legolas, he's not he's not very well developed at all. But none of the elves really, like, the elves are so far above a lot of this. Like
I mean, they're literally detaching themselves from the entire thing.
exactly.
The Mirkwood elves, I don't know much about, but which is where
But
Legolas is from. But anyway,
Legolas is but he's of an Eldar line. Like he's not one of the Sylvan elves. He lives with them, but he's Thranduil, the leader of the Mirkwood elves. He's not some young dude. Like he's old, 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 old. And
yeah.
that's difficult to come across as like, I've been alive for 3,000 years. Like it's hard to act that. Um, you know, so sometimes we forget that, yeah, these folks, they don't see things the same way. And
Right.
that's a difficult thing to deal with. But anyway,
Yeah. So Gollum's plan is my number 4 pick.
yeah, man, we got off on a tangent there. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right, so my number 4 pick. My number 4 pick is going to be it's kind of a wider, almost a whole arc in the first film, but it's the breaking of the Fellowship, which is basically precipitated by Boromir trying to take the ring and Frodo leaving and on his own, and this is Sam chasing after him, and he's just like, yeah, but I'm coming with you. And then, like, so in the book, we don't have the clean cut where Aragorn, who is the ostensible leader of the group, knows that Frodo is going to Mordor on his own. He has to kind of like make a choice of, is he going to go over into Emmenmuir and or Muil and chase after Frodo where he thinks Frodo might have gone.
An endless labyrinth with razor sharp rocks.
Yeah.
Right. Or is he going to go after the hobbits that have been taken towards Isengard? And we don't know. Like, he doesn't know. In the films, it's a little bit cleaned up. But still, the whole breaking of the Fellowship, it's a strong ending. And really, it's the beginning of the book of the Two Towers. So it's kind of this whole thing of like leading into, oh man, we're gonna start this second movie. We know where it's going. It's gonna be awesome. We just have the death of Boromir. We have which is really emotional. We got into that in quite a bit. Both of us have said quite a bit about that, which I think
Well, that's why I didn't take it this week. But
right. And so, but I think the strongest thing is them letting Frodo go and Sam following faithfully, knowing the hopelessness of it. Because I mean, like, Frodo's going alone. Like, that's insane. The whole thing is insane. And Aragorn's just willing. He's willing to let him go because he's not willing to allow Merry and Pippin to be tortured and murdered by Saruman, which he knows will happen if they let him go. He knows that's going to happen. So it's really good about, it's kind of like it's a lot about doing the right thing, even though it's like it's one of these ends justifying the means things. It's like, no, hell no, ends do not justify the means. We cannot sacrifice doing the good thing in order to, achieve a greater goal. And that's one of the things that makes Aragorn such a big hero, and Samwise too, and I mean, and all of them, they all agree to this.
Yep.
So that's why the Breaking of the Fellowship is my number 4 pick.
Cool. Let's head into round 5 and hear your round 5 pick. Round 5.
All right. So I'm gonna stick in the Fellowship because I stuck in Return of the King for I think the first 3. So and this is part of I guess from the first time I watched the films and wonder, my favorite part of the books was always the chase up to Bree. And so this is somewhat abbreviated in the films, but the parts where the Nazgul are have come to the Shire, but they're the Nazgul Chase, basically, where I like the first part particularly, where they get off the road and it's this horrific sort of scene. They're kind of hiding in the roots of the trees and the bugs are crawling all over them. It's obviously like this, like kind of, it's sort of a gross out thing, but it's meant to evoke the kind of fear that the Nazgul naturally evoke. And the screams, man, I think they were so spot on from what I had imagined they would be in the book. And I was just like, oh man, that's what they sound like. That's a freaking Nazgul. They found the real Nazgul. Like, it's just perfect. But yeah, I'm a fan. But basically the Nazgul Chase is or maybe it's not the chase so much, because I'm not talking about after they find Aragorn. I'm not talking about after Bree. I'm talking about pre-Bree,
pre-Arwen, pre-Aragorn, Strider.
Right.
My favorite part is when it's that art. It's definitely inspired by I forget who is it. John Howell's artwork.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
It could be Alan Lee. It might be Alan Lee.
It might be Alan Lee or the Hildebrands or whoever.
Not the Hildebrands.
Where they're hiding under the tree roots.
Yeah, I think that's actually Alan Lee, but I'm not sure.
Right. And he throws Farmer the mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Merry saves the day there. Or Pippin. Yeah. Pippin does that, I think. One of them. It's either Merry or Pippin.
Merry.
Throws the mushrooms. And because they robbed Farmer Maggot's crop, they saved the day.
In the film.
Whatever. Is that your number 5 pick?
That's my number 5 pick.
Sweet. Nazgul Chase to Bree. Hey, we're doing pretty good for no. What's it called?
No prep.
No prep.
I think we got the right subject because we both know these films pretty well.
I'd been on the IMDb like,
Mm-hmm.
What's the greatest dystopian movie? All right, my number 5 pick. I went Return of the King, Fellowship, Return of the King. Return of the King? Is Gollum's playing in Return of the King? Yeah.
No, I think that's... Oh, you may be right. Yeah.
And I'm going to go with The Two Towers for my final pick here.
I know what it is. Go ahead.
The Last March of the Ents.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Yeah. I absolutely adore the entire battle sequence of Helm's Deep, but
That's what I thought you were going to take.
That's not a moment for me. I feel like,
Well, it's basically most of the film.
yeah, that's a huge chunk of a film. It's
It's kind of like
multiple
a Zulu
scenes,
sort of thing.
multiple scenes, multiple moments. Like, if I would pick a moment, it'd been like when they like blow when Gimli blows the horn, like
Yeah, the horn or hammer helm.
Yeah, and they ride out, and they think it's like this is their last ride, and then Gandalf and Éomer come. But that's not my number 5 pick. My number 5 pick is the last march of the Ents, as the Ents get pissed off at Saruman for most of these trees were my friends. They had voices and all this other stuff. And they, much to Merry and Pippin's joy, they march on Isengard and really overthrow the place. They didn't think they were going to win the Ents. So obviously, the last march of the Ents, they thought they were all going to march to their doom. But and then the moment is when he calls all the other Ents, and he's just like, roar! And then they all come out of the trees, and Merry and Pippin's faces are just like, oh, yes, we did it. We got them to fight, and they beat Isengard to a pulp, literally. Like, break the dam. I mean, this is a huge moment too, but like there's multiple moments in this, but yeah.
Well, this is really a huge moment for Merry and Pippin too. It's kind of a turning point for them because they're finally on their own. So, like, if we talk about the archetypes, like you lose Gandalf. Okay. Well, Gandalf is the mentor figure, and he needs to be gone so that everybody else can grow up and get on with it. It's artificially done in the Hobbit, where he's basically like, yeah, I gotta go tend to some stuff, guys. Y'all get through Mirkwood on your own. But like here, there's no Aragorn, there's no Legolas, there's no Gimli. Like, Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli are all like really old, really experienced. They're warrior types. They are well versed in, I know they use Gimli for comic relief, which is fine in the context of the more serious Legolas and Aragorn. But like, Merry and Pippin are out here on their own, and they're trying to be like, why don't you guys want to fight? And they really do inspire this. Because in the film it's Pippin. He basically kind of manipulates Treebeard to go this way, and it's like, that's a big deal for Pippin. And it's definitely showing character growth, and he's learning, and like, he's still himself, and that's what's so good about it. It's like, yeah, he's a troublemaker, so he knows how to make trouble. But in this case, I agree. I think, and this is one I actually considered taking at the last March of the Ents.
But this is also like, they're doing, like you said, without Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, but they were close in the films. At least they're more close with Boromir. We see them interact with Boromir. Boromir's training them how to use their swords.
That's true.
And they watched him die. They watched him sacrifice himself for them. Yeah. And this is a huge moment of where, like, what can we do? How can we, be heroes like Boromir? And, maybe not. Wow. Maybe not in that way. Maybe not in the way that that Boromir did, sacrifice himself for them. But what can they do is, like you said, manipulate the Ents into seeing the destruction that Isengard has done to Fangorn Forest, and it's a huge moment. It's like, would they have been able to overthrow Isengard without the Ents?
No, I don't think so.
Right.
They wouldn't have really been able to deal with the Uruks at Helm's Deep without the Huorns, the trees, the moving living trees at Fangorn, which is only really just kind of paid. It's only in the extended edition that it's even dealt with at the very opening of Return of the King. But really it's a great bigger plot point, because it's another one of these Tolkien-esque catastrophes where it's like, wait, it's like we were gonna lose this battle, but we won based on something we really had no control over. And so that's good. But I really like what you're talking about, though, with how the films use Boromir as the mentor figure for Merry and Pippin. And his death is exactly what precipitates their being carried off and separated from the rest of the Fellowship. Right. So no, I think that's spot on, and I don't think it's really reaching, not very far, not as far as the films are concerned, anyway. So I like it.
Thanks. So let's wrap up with some, just redoing our lists here. I can't even think right now.
Lord of the Rings moments.
Yeah, our top 5 Lord of the Rings moments. Let's recap. That's the word I'm looking for. Recap. So
Ian,
my number 1 pick is Faramir charging back into Osgiliath with Pippin singing in the that scene.
Mm-hmm.
My number 2 is You Shall Not Pass, Gandalf versus the Balrog in Fellowship of the Ring. My number 3 pick is I Am No Man, Éowyn slaying the Witch King. Éowyn and Merry slaying the Witch King. 4 is Gollum's plan to take the ring. Gollum / Smeagol talking to themselves in the reflection of the water. And my number 5 pick is The Last March of the Ents.
Right.
In the Two Towers.
And Jamie, my number 1, the Rohirrim show up at the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Number 2, Samwise Gamgee defeats Shelob. Number 3, Frodo doesn't destroy the ring.
The ring is mine.
Number 4, the breaking of the Fellowship. And number 5, the Nazgul Chase to Bree.
You got any honorable mentions to throw in?
I mean, we kind of talked about a few of them. Like, I don't know. I don't know that I want to do honorable mentions for the surprise, because like those are usually things like, because when we over prep.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I like the Council of Elrond in the film.
Really, yeah. It's very memeable.
Yeah, it's totally memeable. It's not simply walk into Mordor. No, but it's good. It's got the moment where Frodo volunteers to take the ring, but it's also got a lot of plot dump, exposition dump rather. But in the book, like, there's so much. It's notorious. The Council of Elrond is notorious for being like this super long. I think it's like a 20,000 word chapter or something.
It's all dialogue, right?
No, I mean, a lot of it's dialogue. Yeah, it's like these paragraphs upon paragraphs of dialogue. A lot of which is really, I guess at that point, almost monologue. But it's like, oh no, let me tell you my story, because all these people have basically arrived here ready to tell all their tales, and like we're learning a lot of things. But honestly, the Council of Elrond only in the books makes a lot more sense after you've read the books, and you're like, okay, I kind of understand the implications of why they were telling all this stuff, and I didn't really understand it when I was first reading it. So but I think they did a good job with it in the films, and made it both dramatic and much more character oriented.
So I think I'll throw in 2 honorable mentions real quick. The history lesson at the beginning of the Fellowship.
Yeah, the prologue. I
Yeah.
actually had that down as a potential moment, like when it started going there, and I'm like, nah, that's not really it. But yeah, it draws you in.
Oh yeah, and then the you only want it for yourself, Bilbo Baggins. Do not take me for some conjurer of cheap tricks.
That's a good one.
I'm not trying to rob you. Yeah, that's one of my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a small moment. It's not like this big, huge scene. It's a very small moment, and it's setting up the ending of Frodo not wanting to let go of this thing, much like Bilbo didn't want to let go of this thing.
Right.
So we get a lot of foreshadowing with just Bilbo, and then that moment in Rivendell when he sees the ring around Frodo's neck and he turns into this golem-like creature. And I literally
jumped out of
tinkled just a squirt in the first time I watched it. You know, I'm in like middle school or elementary school or whatever, but it's they got you with that jump scare.
Yeah, I think my last honorable mention is going to be the ultimate betrayal, the last showdown with Gollum, and how clever Hobbits to climb so high, and it's like actually,
Sam was right.
Yeah.
Well, we know Sam was right, but
we knew Sam was right. Yeah, it was a bit of dramatic irony, and I think it's fine, but it's finally nice to see it all out there and be done. It's like everybody knows that this is the case. I'm glad everybody can see it now. And really, who is the greatest threat to everything they're trying to do? It's not the Witch King of Angmar. Sauron is kind of this disembodied dark figure behind the doors. It's no orc army. It's not Saruman and his schemes. It's this wretched creature, Gollum, who is alive only by the pity of Bilbo and only by the pity of Frodo. Because of Bilbo's pity, because he's trying to understand, why, he's trying to, get why Bilbo spared him in the first place. So he's going to kind of go with it. And I think that it's really kind of important to see, and what it really reminds me of, the whole thing with Gollum, it kind of, and Tolkien being a Christian and a Catholic, he's familiar with biblical texts. He's definitely, I think, pulling from like in the book of Genesis, where Joseph has confronted his brothers who have sold him into slavery, basically told everybody he was dead, and he tells him, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And so this is the same sort of thing as where Gollum being his betrayal is what he's meaning for evil. Eru Ilúvatar meant for good.
Right. And that's sort of what Gandalf said in their conversation in the Mines of Moria, when they're like, who is that? What is that we're being followed? Gandalf could have been like, hey, Legolas, shoot that little thing. And
right.
That's the end. But Gandalf said, something tells me that he has a part to play in all this.
Right. And I think that ultimately is the beauty of the Lord of the Rings, in that there's a lot of things. It's like, these bad things happen for good. It's not your job to figure out what they are. It's your job to do good, to fight evil, do good, whether or not you understand every lick of it.
Right.
And so I think that it's an admirable theme for a work of fiction to be
a fantasy epic.
Well, I think fantasy epics can tend to have these large, relatable themes, but I don't know. Sometimes I think they want to try to feel more realistic in some ways nowadays. So,
Yeah. Well, that's a wrap on our Lord of the Rings surprise moments draft, because we didn't know we were doing this and in ahead of time, and I think it was fun.
it was fun. It was very fun.
Yeah. It took me a moment to kind of guide myself through all of the Lord of the Rings moments that I enjoy so much when I watch it.
Yeah.
Like the really goosebumpy parts that I get. And that's how I judge movies, right? How many goosebumps I get.
I thought it was how many times you cry.
That too, right? Sometimes those go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So we are the Cine-Siblings. My name's Ian.
And I'm James.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We tweet stuff occasionally. Yeah. So I'm losing myself in the music and the moment. And so this is thanks for listening, everyone. I lost my train of thought.
He's
sign
gonna
us out.
say
Sign us out.
he's gonna say, until then, watch a new movie. And I'm gonna say, catch an old one.
Peace. Thanks for listening to the Cine-Siblings podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Cine-Siblings Pod.